A spectre haunting China, the Soviet Union's ghost. China recently marked a milestone, 75 years under communist rule. This anniversary, however, came with a shadow looming large, the spectre of the Soviet Union's collapse. Could the nation that surpassed the USSR in economic might now be hurtling towards a similar fate? The parallels are undeniable, sparking concern among economists and political analysts alike. China's economic engine, once seemingly unstoppable, is showing signs of sputtering. Debt has skyrocketed, growth has slowed, and demographic challenges cast a long shadow. These factors, eerily reminiscent of the Soviet Union's decline, raise a critical question. Can China escape the same fate? The world watched in astonishment as the Soviet Union, once a superpower that rivaled the United States, crumbled from within. Its centralized, state-controlled economic model, plagued by inefficiency and corruption, ultimately proved unsustainable. Now, as China grapples with its own set of economic woes, the ghost of the Soviet Union looms large, a cautionary tale of unfettered power and economic mismanagement. The anniversary, rather than a triumphant celebration, has become a moment of reflection, a stark reminder that even the mightiest of nations are not immune to the forces of history. At the helm of China's Communist Party stands Xi Jinping, a leader determined to defy historical precedent. Xi, acutely aware of the Soviet Union's demise, has doubled down on control, believing that unwavering ideological discipline is key to the party's survival. His weapon of choice, a sweeping anti-corruption campaign that has purged potential rivals and tightened the party's grip on all aspects of Chinese society. This consolidation of power, while ostensibly aimed at rooting out corruption, has raised concerns about Xi's ultimate ambitions and the stifling of dissent within the party ranks. Xi's approach is a gamble, a high-stakes bet that unwavering control can insulate China from the fate that befell the Soviet Union. He has sought to revitalize the party's ideology, purging it of what he perceives as dangerous Western influences. The media, education, and even the arts are subject to strict censorship, ensuring that only messages aligned with the party line reach the Chinese people. This tightening grip, while intended to safeguard the party's rule, risks stifling innovation and creating a climate of fear that could ultimately prove counterproductive. The question remains, can a nation thrive on control alone, or will this strategy ultimately backfire, pushing China closer to the precipice? Behind China's economic facade lies alarming parallels to the Soviet Union's decline: slowed growth, mounting debt, and a property bubble teetering on collapse. A shrinking workforce and aging population add to the woes. These challenges mirror the Soviet Union's twilight years. The question is how severe China's reckoning will be. Section 4. The Sovietization Trap: How China Risks Repeating History. China's economic model, despite its market-oriented reforms, remains deeply intertwined with the state. This Sovietization, as some economists warn, poses a significant threat to the country's long-term economic health. The government's tight grip on key sectors, from finance to energy, distorts market forces and stifles innovation. State-owned enterprises, often inefficient and burdened with political mandates, crowd out private businesses and hinder productivity growth. This reliance on state control, while seemingly at odds with China's embrace of global capitalism, reflects the party's deep-seated fear of relinquishing its economic dominance. The Soviet Union's collapse was not solely an economic failure. It was also a failure of political and institutional reform. The Communist Party's unwillingness to loosen its grip on power, its suppression of dissent, and its resistance to meaningful economic liberalization ultimately sealed its fate. China, despite its economic achievements, faces a similar crossroads. The party's tight control over information, its intolerance of dissent, and its reluctance to cede economic control create a potent mix of risks that could ultimately undermine its legitimacy and trigger a crisis of confidence. Section 5. The Dragon's Crossroads: Reform or Risk. The next 2 decades will be crucial for China. Xi Jinping's choices will determine China's future. Economic reforms are essential for sustainable growth. Political reforms must empower citizens and strengthen the rule of law. The world is watching closely as China navigates this critical juncture. Will China heed the lessons of the past,